Well, hello and thank you for joining me for another Alex on Tech and iTWire video. I'm joined today by Tom Christodoulou. He is Zebra's country lead for Australia and New Zealand. Welcome to the program.
Alex, hi, thank you, and thank you for having me on your program.
Great. Well, look, before we get any further into the interview, I know that you had the Zebra Customer Summit a few weeks ago, which I actually spoke to Zebra CTO Tom Bianculli about. So I just thought, how did it go?
The event went very well. Yeah, so we're excited. It was attended by more than 280 delegates.
Right.
We had both customers and partners join our event. There was probably about 150 of the best-known brands from Australia and New Zealand
Hmm.
across retail, transport, logistics, manufacturing, healthcare, and government. It was an online seminar, obviously,
Yep,
due
as
to a lot of
everything
the
is
events that we had.
with COVID these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, look, for us, it was a unique opportunity as well to reach out to our customers virtually. We haven't done that previously in
Mm.
this way, and share our vision for the future of edge technologies. As a lot of these industries are going through a lot of change right now, particularly through what's happened with COVID this year. So it was an interesting time to to touch base with our customers.
Sure, and it
Yeah.
sounds like you've got some good numbers too. I mean, I've been to some of your live events, and you've got a good couple of hundred people there or more, and you had 280. So that's an excellent turnout.
It is, and I think just in general, the asset tracking and visibility of what's going on in the supply chain and
Mm.
inside everyone's business is becoming more and more important to everybody, and they're paying a lot more attention in what kind of investments they're making in that space.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I understand that Zebra has just released its latest food safety supply chain vision study, which I did look through, and of course, it made me immediately think. In Australia, we have a thing called paddock to plate. I'm sure that's not a foreign concept to people in the States, and of course, we've heard of problems with pet food having lead in it from China, and in China, we also heard of the milk with the melanin powder, which was killing babies. So this. And of course, we've all had food poisoning. We've all had issues with food security and supply, and we even had issues during the lockdowns of getting food. You went to the stores and a lot of the food was just purchased, snapped up by everybody else. So, I'm obviously going to link to that report in the article that this video will go in. But, can you please tell us how important supply chains are to all industries, what the top findings of this study are, and how Zebra is involved in the food chain?
Thanks, Alex. Supply chain in general is essential to almost all industries.
Mm,
A poorly optimized supply chain will bring most organizations to a halt, impact profits, sales, and obviously customer satisfaction.
mm, mm,
Probably a good example to sort of illustrate that crucial supply chain planning going on right now with governments around the world on delivery of future vaccine for
mhm,
COVID-19 to their populations. So, for example, Zebra Technologies already supports most distribution networks worldwide with enterprise mobile computers, with our label printers and scanners. However, in this case in particular, we also acquired a company a couple of years ago called Temptime,
mhm,
and Temptime provides specialized sensors for vaccine distribution to monitor different environmental inputs
mm,
from the point of manufacture through to the patient administration. So we recently learned from general news stories, for example, that vaccines like this have to be transported at a specific temperature
mm.
to ensure integrity. And so, good example of how crucial your supply chain and what happens in that supply chain is for things. And this is a good example right there. Now, with Zebra's food safety supply chain vision study, it captured global market insights about technology in food supply chain,
Mhm.
and it's based on both consumer and industry decision makers' perceptions around food safety, traceability, and transparency. Results also highlighted how track and trace technologies are key to delivering increased and more transparent information that consumers really want, and they need it as well. So, at a high level, about 5,400 consumers and industry decision makers across these verticals from food and beverage industry responded back in January,
Mhm.
and this was conducted by Azure Knowledge Corporation. So I guess getting back to the topics of importance of supply chain in food, specifically in food, we're finding consumers are looking for full transparency about their
Mm.
food. Notably, one of the key findings, 7 in 10 consumers find it important to know where their food comes from, how food and ingredients are manufactured, prepared, and handled. 51%, so more than half of the consumers cite fear of foodborne illness and disease as the reason to learn more about where their food comes from. So this is from January. You'd expect that maybe now this is a higher statistic with what's happened since, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I guess that food supply chain vision study that we've published, it shows also shows a sizable perception gap between consumers and the food and beverage industry decision makers. So here's an example. This potentially is a make or break issue for companies throughout the supply chain, as consumers don't really believe they are sufficiently informed about their food. Companies in the food supply chain are challenged to provide some of the transparency whilst at the same time meeting, the food safety standards and avoiding recalls and so forth. So we found in the study about 80% or just over 83% of consumers say the industry has an important role to play in food safety. But only about 22% of those consumers say they have complete confidence in food safety based on the information they have. And about 20% of consumers place complete trust in companies and brands to ensure food safety.
Which is a big 80% gap. I mean, that means, 4 out of 5 people don't trust what the companies are saying. I mean, personally, when I look at, the seafood, for example, I want to know which country it's from. If it's sort of seafood or prawns from Vietnam, it's probably not going to be as clean in the river systems, and then you'll get, for example, in Australia, or wild salmon from Tasmania. And I mean, I've been very personally, very strict on wanting to know where the food is from and if I can trust it. And it's good to know that the company that is helping warehouses and all the logistics with all of the mail and all those sort of things coming through. I mean, I always see the little handheld devices at my post office, and that's a Zebra device. But food, which is what sustains us, I mean, that clearly has become... I mean, how many years or decades has Zebra been helping with this part of the supply chain?
We've been working with our customers for about 50 years, and I think food for 50 years. So we actually last year was our 50 years anniversary, and barcoding technology very much was adopted early on by the retail industry. So we've sort of been supporting the food industry for quite a while. What's certainly changing is, it's reaching back now to the point of manufacture, and that traceability and visibility. Technology plays an important role in that space. So if we're trying to improve consumers' trust in the brands and their perception or their comfort, traceability and providing some transparency into what's going on is a really good first step on achieving that.
Well, it's no surprise that in the world we live in today, where information is so readily available and so granular, that we would want that exact same technology to be applied to the food chain. What were some of the other things? I sort of cut you off a little bit there. Please keep going about some of the other findings of the study.
I think so. We covered a fair bit on the consumer side, so more on the industry decision maker side.
Sure.
More than 90% of the industry decision makers in the food and beverage industry are planning to make investments in food monitoring technology, right? So they're definitely seeing these trends, and they're definitely seeing an opportunity here as well. And now talking about some specific technology, over 40% of them say that RFID tags improve traceability more than any other technology. We thought that was quite a significant number, and saying specifically that that's the one. And then we noticed some other emerging technologies that they're thinking about, or they are gaining traction. And that's, for example, temperature-sensitive labels are on their radar, blockchain, and using predictive analytics as well.
Yeah, well, when we're getting really advanced and really capable, I mean, the RFID tags, you don't have to scan 5,000 boxes, you just scan them all at once. Temperature-sensitive labels, what a classic thing. I mean, so many of the products we purchase from the store, it says, do not refreeze. And if it's been frozen and unfrozen along the supply chain, I mean, you want to know, it's just never as good if you freeze it and refreeze it. And people know this. I mean, this is just something that people are aware of. And, so clearly your engineers and product development guys have been really busy to help to invent all these technologies and to make them easy to use. Now, from the study, there also appears to be a disjoint between the consumer trust. You mentioned, like 80% of people don't trust it, and that supply chain resilience. So, I mean, you've explained many of the things the industry is doing to rekindle the trust by adopting these technologies. But, what else can you tell us about this particular topic of this trust and making sure that consumers can really be confident that what they're getting? I mean, we don't want counterfeit wines or counterfeit, produce. So, please tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, indeed. So only about 2 in 10 consumers have complete confidence in food safety that they eat. The most effective way to bridge this gap is through deploying the right kinds of technology. Transparency essentially builds trust. And a good quick example, you mentioned it earlier, is the courier industry. So just knowing where your package is at and as it's being delivered reduces your dissatisfaction with the delivery and increases trust. And you're not making it go any faster. You just know where it is at.
Yeah, I always like to tell courier companies, why is it that I can track my pizza, but I can't track my parcel? And there are companies like Sendle that you can actually see, like on Uber, you can see them. And it's like, I wish all companies would do that.
You want to know instantly. You want to know, has it gone around that corner yet? Where is it at?
Well, I can walk out the front door and meet the guy rather than have them come to the front and knock on the door. You can be, information is power. It gives you more flexibility.
Absolutely.
And so, this ability to track in real time has been a godsend, and I wish more people did it. But obviously using some of the technologies that you provide, that those food chain, supply chain people can do this.
Yeah, correct. And notably, overwhelming majority, so over 90% of decision makers in the food and beverage industry acknowledge investments in that traceability-focused solution will actually provide a competitive edge for them and enable them to meet consumer expectations, which is kind of similar to what you said around your consumer expectations. What are you expecting, right? Yeah. An example here, I think it was a couple of years ago, back in 2018, the strawberry needle contamination incident, which caused a lot of trouble in Australia, right, back then.
Oh, huge losses.
So, yeah, exactly. And according to some news reports, 68 strawberry brands were affected by that incident. There were contamination scares. It resulted in supermarkets pulling strawberries off the shelves. Tons of fruit were dumped at the peak of the growing season. Now, if the right track and trace technology was deployed, authorities would have been able to track back to that affected batch of strawberries much quicker and much easier. Right?
It's like contact tracing today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. And how much better we all understand that process now, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So how long will it be before this track and trace technology is much more widespread? I mean, it must have grown over the past few years, but how soon before everybody has it as such?
Yeah, I think it's definitely being deployed across industries at the moment. So we're working with, across retail supply chain. We're working with most of the customers in Australia and New Zealand. There's heavy investment in going into this space. If I look into the future, if I think about, maybe now and the next 10 years, for example, looking at what our supply chain vision study showed for food industry. The steps that are being taken for more transparency in supply chain, they all recognize, and we all recognize, more work needs to be done to improve consumer confidence and improve food traceability. So this is something that everyone broadly agrees on, and we see that it is not just a nice to have or an efficiency gain. It's a competitive advantage. It's a safety matter. It's something customers care about. So businesses naturally have more information available to them, but can they improve customers' faith in their food sources by providing? So it's all about how do you get that information that you have as a company, make it available to your customers, because you're informed whichever part of the food chain you are, what's happening there, but your customers may not have that full visibility. And really that's what they're looking for, is that visibility into what's happening and where is it at.
Is there a QR code on products that I can scan with my phone the way I'd scan a QR code in in a restaurant, but instead of checking in, I can then see a report that tells me all of the different things that has happened to that particular item, and where it was grown and how it was transported. Is that up and running yet?
Correct. Yes, and I think there are organizations like GS1 that have really been championing this cause to make sure that it's all about, because standardization is a big matter, right? If you don't have standards on everything, it's very difficult to implement it on a broad basis. So they've been doing a great job for many years, working with companies around the world, including in Australia. A lot of food today has a 1D barcode, which is kind of, like if you think about zebra technologies and the zebra and the striped zebra, that's kind of the 1D barcode,
The standard barcode that's been on products for decades.
Correct. And that typically just identifies what's the product for classification purposes and pricing purposes. As we evolve into that 2D barcode or that QR code that you mentioned and RFID labels, it means that each individual item can inform us on, for example, time, date, location, the exact production line that it was manufactured at. And how useful would that be, for example, on that strawberry scenario?
Yeah,
if you knew exactly the time, date, shift, where it happened, location, right? So there's change happening right now. Improving food safety is it's also an incredible opportunity for brands to become leaders in their space. The chain of events that will determine how industry looks in 2030, for example, that's already begun. So this year, COVID-19, food and beverage, certainly one of the industries, not the only one, that's been impacted substantially by what happened this year. And essentially, it's accelerated the transformation. Suddenly, technology has become much more essential going forward. So that's certainly, and put simply, today there is still a lack of information flow. And next 10 years, technology will play a big role in addressing that issue.
Yeah, well, that app that I spoke about that lets you look at that particular item of food and know where it came from, where it was grown, should be commonplace by then. I mean, I know that I go to a little Russian shop in Sydney and buy these mushrooms, that they pick in the forest. And, it's my cultural heritage is Russian, so I've always loved those because I've had them when I was growing up. But, it says it's picked in Poland or wherever it was. And I always sort of think, how far is that from Chernobyl? I know Chernobyl is not spewing out, the radiation like it was when it was all exploding, and it's been many years, and they put sarcophagi and all the rest, sarcophaguses on that. But I still wonder, and I wish I could just get my phone and scan it and find out. So that's something that, for the curious who want to know that, it will be definitely something, as you're saying, that we'll be seeing over the next few years. It'll be commonplace. I'm sure even the Coles and Woolies and those organisations it'll just be a feature of their app. Hey, you want to check out where this product came from? Just scan it. Our app will help you do that, because they want you to stay in their app, right? Not use somebody else's.
Certainly, I would expect all those companies to be leaders in this area, and they are definitely championing this because it's linked to so many critical factors like consumer satisfaction and trust, right?
And no doubt you can help them to make those things a reality.
We do our best, and we do work with all of them, yes.
Sure. Now, my second last question as we get towards the end of the interview is just simply to change gears a bit and just ask if you could please share what some of the best advice that you've received in life to help you get where you are today.
Actually, just before I say that, I'll just quickly comment about your mushroom example. I'm actually from Poland, so I'm glad you didn't keep going on that one. So, well, anyway.
Well, Poland is not next to the Ukraine. I mean, it might be next to Ukraine. I can't remember, but it's far away. So, I mean, I'm just, we get the Polsky Gorky, we get the Russian shop has all these things, half of which are not from Russia, but from countries around Russia. And and ever since Chernobyl, I've always wondered, how safe is this? But I'm still here. I haven't grown a second head yet,
Absolutely. And I remember actually when Chernobyl happened, I was still in school at the time, and everything that went on around that time. Okay. So look, I think, for me early on in my career, someone close gave me some really good advice. And they said, essentially, it's always better to tell someone the worst truth than even the smallest lie, right? And I've tried to live by that and work by that, and it helps because it helps you to deal with problems early and not push them off till later and let them become bigger problems. And I guess that comes back to integrity. Integrity is actually at Zebra Technologies, it's also one of our core values, championed by our CEO. So that works well for me and for my team, and certainly the way I work. And that would be a piece of advice I'd give anybody. Integrity is as a value in an industry such as food and beverage industry. How important is that, right?
Perfect.
And technology effectively helps companies, helps industries to show that integrity, to build that trust, to be transparent. So I guess it's all a little bit linked around integrity. Yeah.
Well, it just goes to show that no matter how technologically advanced we think we are, and we are compared to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 years ago, but the amount of information that's out there still remains to be truly harnessed and distributed to consumers. I mean, there's a famous saying from William Gibson, who wrote the Neuromancer books, that the future has already been invented. It just hasn't been widely distributed yet. The technologies are out there, but it's not until it's like the light switch. When they would have first come out, everyone would have gone, wow, but no one thinks about it twice. The only time you think about the light switch is when it doesn't work. So when a technology becomes an invisible part of our lives, then it has succeeded. And the ability to track and trace your food as a consumer and to know every step of the way, if you want to look down that deeply, doesn't exist for most consumers yet, but hopefully within a decade, it'll just be a normal part of our lives, and we'll only be worried when we can't find that information because the trust won't be there. So it's a bright future. I always think that the best is yet to come.
You're right. And, you made me think about it. It's absolutely right. It's not that we all want to check everything that we put in our mouth and trace it back to where it comes from. It's just that we want the ability to do that if you want to, right? That's the peace of mind. Absolutely. At Zebra, we've been empowering frontline business for quite a while with those kinds of technologies. Food safety track and trace solutions, they're just one of those many ways to focus on. And so this is certainly, I think it's an important topic. Certainly this year, I've seen a lot of big industry players in Australia and New Zealand take this topic seriously. Not that they haven't previously, but bring it to the forefront, focus on it, and dedicate more effort into it. So I think we're in for some very positive changes going forward. In this industry.
Well, a few months ago in Beijing, they had another outbreak of COVID, and they were worried that it had come from Korea or somewhere else via frozen food. And that was also one of the theories when New Zealand had its second wave to sort of pop out of nowhere. They were like, "Ooh, is this coming from food?" So it's never been more crucial than today. It's only going to become more important. And look, my final question to you is, what is your final message to iTWire viewers and readers and to your current and future customers and partners?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me on your show. That's been very interesting and exciting for me to have a conversation with you. So Zebra Technologies, we are a channel business. We work with more than 10,000 partners across 100 countries. We work closely with our partners to understand the needs of our customers, to come up with solutions that best cater for their needs, kind of like what we discussed today. So ultimately, we hope to provide our customers with better visibility of their businesses so they can make better business critical decisions swiftly and decisively. And that's what we're here for. That's what we hope to support all of your readers, all of the people interested in iTWire, as obviously, I have been for quite a long time. And again, thank you very much.
Well, I'll have this report linked to. There'll be a landing page where people can, I'm sure, freely register to get the report. So Tom Christodoulou, country lead for Zebra Australia New Zealand, thank you very much for your time, and I hope we get to speak again in the future.
Okay, Alex, thank you very much as well.
Thank you.